The first species that most civilizations in the galaxy make contact with are the humans. This isn't because they are the most technologically advanced. Those would be the Ekrons with their metallic bodies and slaved star gods. Nor because they send the most messages or probes. Those would be the Zlaratans. But rather because they are, by far, the species that took the most risks and made the biggest sacrifice when it came to deep space colonization. For the majority of species in the galaxy, the process of expansion is pretty straightforward and leveled. They start by colonizing their moons, then the planets of their system, and once they have FTL, they go to the near solar systems and start the process of habitation. Humans, however, took a whole different path. First of all, we have generational ships, massive constructs of the size of cities, able to house thousands of thousands at the same time. Of course, the idea wasn't exactly original, since most other species considered it as an option, but only the humans were willing to accept the sacrifices, resources, and risks that could come with such a path. Every single volunteer that aborted those ships knew that they, their children, or sometimes even their grandchildren, would never live to see the end of their journey, and yet they chose to make the travel anyway. But what happens when something is beyond the reach of a few generations? What happens when what you desire to reach takes thousands of years instead of hundreds? Well, for that, they had the cryogenic ships, where 99% of the crew was staying cryosleep. Every few cycles, some poor unfortunate souls would have to wake up before the end of their journey, and share the burden of loneliness and of protection of their fellow crewmates, since no ship can go unsupervised for such a long time, at least at that time. This is already impressive, but like some famous human that used to live millions of years ago said, "But wait, there is more." The probe ships. Ah, the probe ships. When the Galactic Union first learned about these, they seriously considered charging humanity for such a cruel act against their kind, which is impressive when you consider that they allowed to slip the generational and cryo ships. These ships were filled with hundreds of thousands of frozen embryos, sent to the farthest of systems of the whole galaxy, on a journey that would take eons, sometimes literally. Once they landed, a new generation of humans would be raised by the AI on board the ship of their new home. When you consider that every time one of these ships would finally establish on their new planets, they repeated the process, well, you can easily see why they are literally everywhere. Seriously, they are like rats. No offense intended, of course. Of course, this came with its own risks, leaving behind the dozens of brave men and women who never reached their destination, because of all sorts of tragedies, from space pirates to ship malfunctions, to mutinies that went out of hand, to the IA going haywire, on a long list of things that can go wrong in space. We have to consider the separation caused on humanity, and the several civil wars that this ensued. And lastly, the fact that once they unlocked reliable FTL, they had to go back and recover several of the unlucky ships that were sent on the wrong time, right before the new discovery. So, you are telling me that right after my parents left, we discovered FTL? The young human whispered, with an expression that was a mix between anger and amusement. Is there any good news at least? You get a 1 million credits compensation for the trouble, said the insectoid alien that was hired for this rather annoying job. You should have started with that,